I'm Brian Westbrook with GeekWire Studios here at AWS reInvent, joined by Alex Gallagher. And Alex, you are the Vice President of Cloud for a company that maybe nobody's heard of, that makes a product that everyone has heard of. You work for Canonical, and your product is Ubuntu Pro. Ubuntu Pro powers a lot of the cloud. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Ubuntu's been, I guess we were one of the first sort of distributions that was on the major public clouds. And that's been, I think we're approaching 20 years of Ubuntu, but we've been certainly powering a lot of compute on AWS for over a decade now. So yeah, and that's just gone from strength to strength.
I know when I was an IT executive, Ubuntu was something that we all had in our tool chests. And it's interesting to have watched it grow over the years. One of the biggest advantages, and I would say strength of Ubuntu, and I'm sure you'd agree, is its focus on security. Why don't you tell us about enterprise security in the cloud using Ubuntu?
It's been super interesting to be running around the show, and we've heard, a lot of people are super aware there's been a sort of increase in ransomware attacks, exploitation of the software supply chain, and there's lots of vendors in here that are indeed focused on that. And that's something that Ubuntu has been doing, as you say, in the data center and across cloud and now into containers. It's right top of mind, top of focus. We're now not just focusing on the OS, but also the application layer. And as I mentioned, dependencies are top of mind, because when you run open source software on Ubuntu, you bring in a lot of dependencies. That's definitely true of containers and a variation of things around that.
And speaking of containers, I want to get to that. Adoption of containers, growing every year. How is Ubuntu Pro streamlining container adoption?
Well, as I mentioned, we're seeing more regulation, more emphasis on security. So as people look to be sort of FIPS compliant, PCI compliant, they're looking to run their containers on compliant nodes. So if you're running a service on EKS and you're suddenly looking at cross-platform or cross-cloud strategy, we have tools like Ubuntu Pro. So it's available on all those platforms. It brings in things like FIPS compliance, and as you containerize the binaries in Ubuntu Pro, again, that application support story is there. And again, that just makes it a lot easier for our developers to get on with what they need.
Why are IT leaders choosing Ubuntu Pro? You mentioned some of the advantages, but when I have these options, why would I pick Ubuntu Pro?
There's lots of great domestic Linuxes out there on the cloud, which is absolutely fantastic. But again, I've sort of hinted on this earlier. When you're talking about cross-platform, cross-cloud, and you're looking about which distributions do I have internally, that's certainly one of our key components. And we're doing something very unique. As I said, we've got Ubuntu Pro now patching those open source dependencies. That software supply chain is huge. So it's bringing some controls in around the use of open source software back into the security team. And as that sort of as they broaden the scale and they bring more and more software in, having something that gives you peace of mind about running that in your enterprise is huge. So we've become into focus, I guess, on those areas.
We're here at AWS reInvent, and you've talked to a lot of customers. You're over at your booth not far from here. What are the customers saying? What are you advising them? What maybe surprised you? What kind of feedback are you getting that maybe surprised you?
I think there's been a lot of focused emphasis on AI, and there's been lots of updates in the last few weeks where people are thinking about their strategy in AI, and I think what surprised me is people looking for optionality there, right? Like there's certainly, if you go all in on one vendor and something changes, how do I have options? So that's been somewhat surprising in terms of how people are looking to use open source software in that componentry space, and how a lot of the things that we're bringing to market are going to help with automation, securing that. I mean, there's a lot of data scientists there that don't want to run infrastructure, but they still want to leverage open source software. So that has actually been the focus of the show for us.
And open source, certainly a big focus of Ubuntu Pro. I think the two really go hand in hand. When you think of Ubuntu, you think of, for a lot of people, that's sort of how they understand open source or how they became familiar with open source. Tell me about Canonical's play in the open source space. If I could, that might be kind of an awkward question because it's sort of all there, right?
No, one of the reasons why developers use Ubuntu because of its broad package support.
Sure.
And that's kind of moved us into a place of where we feel like we have a duty of care there to help those people secure the full stack. And again, just because you move into a container situation, you're still pulling through Ubuntu binaries.
Right.
So end-to-end security, secure out the box, secure by default, making very small containers with a smaller attack surface. All those things play right into our hands, and we're well placed to help enterprises with that.
Ubuntu Pro, before we go, available on AWS as a native product on EC2 workspaces and EKS anywhere. How can enterprises get involved? How can they get Ubuntu Pro on their AWS instances?
Well, I'm glad you called that out. So fully integrated, offered by Amazon, apps at AWS, completely perfect. You can get it straight from the platform. We have variations of Ubuntu Pro in the marketplace. You can even upgrade from an existing Ubuntu machine and add the functionality of Ubuntu Pro to that. So same binary, same code, you're just scaling up the security, and again, hooking into all those dependencies that run on Ubuntu.
Is the upgrade process complicated?
It's super simple. You can literally in-place upgrade, right? So it's very frictionless, should we say.
Fantastic. Alex Gallagher, VP of Cloud for Canonical. I'm Brian Westbrook, GeekWire Studios.